tonight. The carrier layoffs.
I call it a kick in the nuts.
Aftermath at Finsbury Park Mosque. And Sam, the robotic Freemason. The Supreme Court says the government can enforce certain restrictions on admitting refugees to the U.S. for now. But the court also said the government must admit travelers from 6 Muslim-majority countries if they have family members here, which could now include grandparents, aunts and uncles, and cousins. In an unusual decision, authorities in Saudi Arabia say they've released the woman detained for appearing in an online video wearing a miniskirt in public. She was released Tuesday night after a few hours of questioning, but has not been charged, and the case has been closed. The woman, who was not named, told investigators the video was published without her knowledge. At least 62 people, including an army general, local politicians, and police officers, have been convicted in Thailand's largest ever human trafficking trial. 102 suspects were charged in the case that began in 2015 after the discovery of 36 bodies in shallow graves near the Thai-Malaysia border. Authorities said the site was part of a trafficker's jungle camp where hundreds of Rohingya Muslim refugees and Bangladeshi migrants were tortured and held hostage until relatives were able to pay for their release. Attorney General Jeff Sessions issued a new directive aimed at stepping up police seizures of cash and property, a practice the Obama administration largely moved away from.
Civil asset forfeiture is a key tool that helps law enforcement defund organized crime.
Sessions says the new plan includes provisions to limit abuse. But critics point out that in the past, police have seized property without a criminal conviction or even a charge. President Trump's Commission on Election Integrity held its first public meeting today. The commission has already asked for vast amounts of voter data, like birth dates and the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers.
If any state does not want to share this information, one has to wonder what they're worried about. And I asked the Vice President, I asked the Commission, what are they worried about? There's something. There always is.
President Trump summoned Republican senators to the White House today to jumpstart talks about the stalled health care legislation and make some thinly veiled threats about their job security.
Look, he wants to remain a senator, doesn't he? Okay. And I think the people of your state, which I know very well, I think they're going to appreciate what you hopefully will do. Any senator who votes against starting debate is really telling America that you're fine with Obamacare.
After the meeting, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the Senate is going to hold a preliminary vote on the repeal bill next week.
We'll be voting to get on the bill.
But that's not how the White House wanted this week to go. They had another message they wanted the public to focus on. Shauna Thomas has more.
Over at the White House, this week has a theme. It's not healthcare or tax reform, both really important issues to the president that Congress is working on. Instead, this week is Made in America Week. That's why you were treated to this meme-worthy video of President Trump in a fire truck that was made in America.
Where's the fire? Put it out fast.
Theme weeks are something White Houses, and not just this one, tend to do when they're trying to get journalists and the public to pay attention to a more favorable issue. And this White House desperately wants to change the subject from the healthcare mess to promoting products that are manufactured here in the States, a worthy topic. But this strategy has some problems. First, a bunch of products that bear the Trump name are not made in America. That made for some fun headlines. Second, there's no changing the subject away from the inability of the Republicans to pass an Obamacare repeal bill.
Thanks.
Real news keeps getting in the way of the White House's attempts to frame coverage. You could even track part of Trump's presidency this way, so we did. June 5th through June 9th was Infrastructure Week.
Today we're here to talk about how we will create the infrastructure of the future.
Mr. President, any reaction to Comey's testimony? Any reaction at all?
Yeah, something else was going on that week.
I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document.
Next up, Workforce Development Week. Training people for 21st century jobs is such a good topic, Ivanka Trump got involved.
There are currently 6 million jobs available in this country that are due, in part, to the skills gap.
Now, some outlets did report on this, but also noted that the president's budget accessed some state job training grants. Oh, and Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III had to answer questions about Russia.
I have never met with or had any conversation with any Russians or any foreign officials.
Energy Week.
We're becoming more and more energy dominant. I don't want to be energy free. We want to be energy dominant.
Fair. But that Monday, the CBO reported the Senate healthcare repeal bill would cause 22 million more people to become uninsured. Which brings us back to Made in America Week.
So what are they made out of? Like a good bet?
This White House got some pretty good local headlines out of their 50-state product showcase. One former Obama official said that's a top benefit, since it's hard for White House news to break through on a local level. And that official admitted they tried these theme weeks too, but that they don't work if you didn't have some kind of substantive policy proposal to hang them on.
Oh, look at that. Good.
It can't just look like a distraction. It needs to feel real.
So nice, though, huh? It feels good.
Calling this Made in America Week is a huge slap in the face for hundreds of workers at the Carrier plant in Indianapolis. By Friday, they'll be out of work, and their jobs will be headed to Mexico.
My coal department will be gone next week, off to Monterrey, Mexico.
Dwayne Orskovic is 38. For the last 4.5 years, he's made heating and cooling equipment at the Carrier factory in Indiana. Until this year, he was certain he'd one day retire there.
What can you do?
You can do what you're doing today.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the opportunities, people like yourself coming out here and offering assistance for employment is great.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Carrier is laying off more than 600 employees in 2 groups, about 300 tomorrow and the rest right before Christmas, which is when Dwayne gets the axe. We caught up with him last week at a jobs fair for union workers. He and other employees said that while they're looking for work,
I appreciate it.
They already feel antagonized.
Yeah, I will. The valves that we put on our A coils, they already got the sticker saying made in Mexico, and that's been months now.
How did people feel once that started happening?
They're really pissed. They're like, how are they getting away with this? Well, the department, not the corporation. The department is already contracted for Mexico.
So does it kind of feel like symbolism of what's about to happen?
I don't know what you want to call it, but I call it a kick in the nuts. We spend more time at work than see our own families. We're working 6 days a week, 5 at night to 4 in the morning, and you're going to insult us like that?
The Trump administration made Carrier the poster child for the struggles of American manufacturing workers. During the campaign, then-candidate Trump used Carrier as an example of corporations turning their backs on American laborers. Many of Carrier's employees, Dwayne included, voted for him because they trusted he'd stop it.
We're not going to let Carrier come in, make air conditioners in Mexico, sell the air conditioners to us across a very strong border now without consequence.
Before Trump was even inaugurated, he announced he'd negotiated to save 1,069 Carrier jobs from being shipped to Mexico. But if you don't include white-collar positions that weren't ever on the chopping block, fewer than 800 union jobs were actually preserved. 600 jobs, including Dwayne's, are still heading to Mexico. Carrier got $7 million in subsidies for the deal.
When do you think the dust settles from all of this? Like, when is it?
It's never going to settle. This is going to be a hot topic for years. There's a lot of other companies now are following suit. You know, so let's see what Mr. Trump can do. You talking the talk, well, let's see what you can do, man. About stopping American jobs going overseas or across borders.
Each night, Dwayne hosts the night shift version of Happy Hour at 4 a.m., when his fellow workers get off and the bars are closed.
Do you have family, people you're supporting?
Sure. I have 3 kids, but, you know, I mean, it is what it is.
Who do you guys blame?
Corporate America, corporate greed. It's all about greed.
Thank you. Not even the Latinos, because like I said, I feel they get screwed too because they making them do a big job for a little amount of money.
Yeah, you guys got 25. What did you get? And they're gonna get.
It's like 20 and 25.
And they're gonna get $3 something.
$3 to $5 an hour. That won't last.
United Technologies, Carrier's parent company, declined to interview on the record. In a statement, they emphasized they would pay to re-educate employees. But job retraining doesn't have an impressive track record. Robert James is the president of the local United Steelworkers Union.
Education is going to be important. Training is going to be important. That's where the jobs are now.
So do you think there are some long-lasting jobs
Yes.
inside that building right now?
Yes. You really don't have any other choice. You have to have some type of hope.
1 month ago today, a van driven by a white British man plowed into a crowd of Muslim worshippers near Finsbury Park Mosque in central London, killing 1 and injuring 10. That mosque was once known for extremist sermons by notorious hate preacher Abu Hamza, but it's since become a force for moderation in the Muslim community and a model of de-radicalization in the UK. And now, its members have become victims of terror themselves. Hind Hassan reports.
Between 1997 and 2004, Egyptian cleric Abu Hamza al-Masri preached extremism and fundamentalist Islam at Finsbury Park Mosque.
Many people have been attacking me in the newspapers. Everybody knows I have right to sue them. I have right to take them to court for a lot of lies.
In response, police closed the mosque down, so Hamza took his sermons to the street outside. Among those attending was Richard Reed, a terrorist who tried and failed to bring down an American Airlines jet with a bomb in his shoe. For teenage worshippers like Ismail Enashi, the sermons were frightening.
Attending the mosque was, one experience based on fear because it was, held hostage effectively to Abu Hamza. He would usually go into very long sermons about the difference between us Muslims and the non-Muslims. He would sort of preach a message of hate and separation. And I found that very frightening as a teenager, actually.
Hamza's time at the mosque ended in 2004, when he was slung in jail and eventually extradited to the US. He's now serving life in prison there for terror offences. A year later, the mosque was reopened, having been taken over by a community trust with new management, including Mohammed Kosbar. He says the steps to de-radicalisation were simple: get rid of Abu Hamza's remaining followers, then make sure that no one could deliver a sermon without being vetted first.
We kicked Abu Hamza's supporters out of the mosque, and we took over here the mosque, and we changed it from a hostile to a cohesive atmosphere. And now, as you can see, it is just not just only mosque, it is a community center which is open for everybody. When you engage with the community in a positive way, they can make a huge difference, and this mosque proved that.
If you were to be made aware of somebody who was coming to this mosque that was perhaps saying things that are considered extreme or is potentially vulnerable to radicalisation, what would you do about it?
Well, first of all, our role on policies won't allow anyone to come and speak just like this. We invite speakers, which we know that they are, we can trust them and we can trust what they are saying. Nobody whatsoever allowed to come and just preach and give a speech to the congregation.
The lingering image of Finsbury Park Mosque as an incubator for terror has been hard to leave behind. That doesn't sit well with many Muslims here, who feel this attack on their community has been framed differently to other terror strikes in the UK, which were carried out by Muslims.
This incident that's just happened, some media elements, I'm not saying your media elements, they have tried to link this with the Finsbury Mosque Abu Hamza and say it's because of this mosque has links with people who are extremist. That's why it's happened. So they're trying to condone what's happened, which is unacceptable.
The steps Finsbury Park Mosque took to de-radicalise 12 years ago are still working. Yet as the mosque tries to emerge from the shadow of its past, it's now vulnerable to a different kind of extremist threat. The attack using the van.
The van was only the beginning.
The fun will continue this August. Yeah. There will be rivers of blood flowing down the streets. I will make sure of this. None of you vermin will survive. I mean, who would survive being gassed or blown up? Have you been getting more hate mail? Has that increased?
It is definitely increasing. There's still many to come, but we don't know what is there.
They're very specific as well. The fun will continue this August. Yeah. There will be rivers of blood.
Yes. And this is why it's serious.
This letter has since been reported to the police, but it isn't the only hate mail the mosque has received. They say they want the government to take greater action and protect their community.
Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton called for a review of the state's police body camera policies, following the fatal shooting of Justine Demond. Police officer Mohammed Noor shot and killed Demond on Saturday night, and both his camera and his partner Matthew Harrity's camera were turned off during the shooting. As with other police shootings around the country, it will be the local prosecutor who chooses whether to bring charges against Officer Noor. That power, or discretion, makes the elections to fill those prosecutor positions extremely important. And that's why one billionaire international donor is putting big money into local races all around the country.
In March, Aramis Ayala, the first black state attorney elected in Florida, said her office would no longer seek the death penalty. 3 months later, Kim Foxx, the state attorney for Cook County, Illinois, announced her support for releasing nonviolent defendants without cash bail. Foxx and Ayala are the latest in a string of progressive prosecutors who all have one thing in common: backing from the liberal billionaire George Soros. Since 2015, Soros has funded 14 reform-focused candidates in local district attorney races, including primaries, across the country. 10 of them are now in office, and one, Larry Krasner, is standing for general election in the fall in Philadelphia, after winning the Democratic primary in May. Soros' contributions flow through state-level PACs that all share the Safety and Justice moniker. They've ranged from $21,000 in Milwaukee to $1.9 million in Arizona's Maricopa County, which Soros spent in a failed effort to defeat the Republican district attorney. All in all, Soros has spent $11.2 million on DA races. So why spend so much money to elect local prosecutors?
There's almost no reform we want that prosecutors couldn't implement today using their own discretion. If you want bail reform, then prosecutors can simply stop asking for bail. If you want to see shorter sentences, then during plea bargaining, prosecutors should just offer lesser sentences. They have so much discretion. There's nothing they couldn't really accomplish if they didn't want to.
Prosecutors run for office in 46 states. And historically, the easiest way to win election has been to be tough on crime.
The politics of punishment are incredibly strongly stacked in favor of being punitive.
This is precisely what Soros wants to change. And by targeting relatively low-profile races, in which he's typically the largest donor, he's making sure he gets the most bang for the buck. Pfaff says that if Soros wants to make the most impact, he should focus on prosecutors in rural areas, like Mississippi's Scott Colum, to whom Soros gave almost $1 million.
The high population counties have been decarcerating and becoming more progressive in criminal justice matters for years. Less urban and more rural counties have been becoming actually tougher.
It isn't always easy to find progressive challengers outside of cities, but that may change if Soros-supported candidates keep winning.
In Congress today, a House subcommittee approved draft legislation that would allow manufacturers to put up to 100,000 driverless vehicles per year on the road. It's a step towards robots replacing us behind the wheel and phasing out taxi and truck drivers. That's a ways off, but there's one robot named Sam who doesn't need anyone's permission to operate. Sam's a bricklayer and is very good at its job.
This is Sam. It's a robot put together with off-the-shelf parts by a company called Construction Robotics. It looks more like a chest freezer than C-3PO, but it can lay more than 3,000 bricks a day once it gets going. The best human masons can do about 1,000. And Sam never makes mistakes or gets tired. The company has 6 of them, building walls across America.
The efficiency on construction sites has been very stagnant or declined in the last 20, 30 years, whereas manufacturing efficiency has increased significantly. And a lot of that is due to robotics and technologies. We looked at a lot of different applications and tried to hone in on areas where you had repetitive motion, there's a lot of physical activity.
What are the pieces that make it up, and how do they work together to help it lay a wall?
We have some sensing technology that looks at a laser that's mounted to the wall on the story pole system, corrects for the movement on the scaffold, puts the brick right where it's supposed to go. We have a mortar system that tempers the mortar, measures the mortar, and applies the mortar to the brick. We have a bunch of electronics, a bunch of sensors, and then onboard power. That's all there is to it.
The day I was there, Sam laid a record 3,267 bricks in 8 hours. Though the robot still requires at least 2 human beings to do finishing work and feed it bricks and mortar as it moves along the scaffold. Overall, the robot has laid 50,000 bricks on the site since June 1st. So if we're looking at a construction site in 15, 20 years, how does it look different to this?
There'll probably be maybe a little bit less workers, but really it's about smarter and more efficient equipment.
Does that give you any pause when you develop robots?
We look at job site robots in particular as really a way to augment the worker.
But I mean, with respect, every industry that starts to automate has that same line. They say it's going to augment the worker. And of course, for a little while, it does augment the worker.
Sure.
But in 5 years' time, if you have your way, if your robot gets so much more efficient and so much more cost efficient, maybe that augmentation slips into something a little different.
There's a huge amount of variation on a job site, and I see humans continuing to be part of the loop for a long time.
The truth about robots is that nobody completely knows when or even how they will start to truly affect the economy. The consulting company McKinsey said earlier this year that more than half of the US economy could be automated by 2055. But that prediction, McKinsey warned, might be out by 20 years in either direction. Those on the front lines, the masons on the site, had very different views about Sam. How many brick can you lay in a day by yourself?
Roughly right here, we're talking about 900.
And have you seen the robot up there?
That machine is good for long walls, but I don't see long walls anymore. Right now, architects and everybody is concentrating to have difficult jobs, small pieces.
Does it worry you?
Not really. I think that robot is not too fast, too many men to take care of the machine. By the time you set all the lasers and all this stuff, it's take too much time. I don't know how many years it's gonna be taken to before we lose the job. It's gonna be a long time.
Are you worried about your job in the future?
Así como inventaron ahora esta máquina, es probable que en el futuro inventen alguna otra cosa, otra máquina que ayude a la misma máquina a alimentar el.
Peter's told me that Sam has doubled in speed in the few years that Construction Robotics has been working on it, and that the company is currently building other robots to augment repetitive construction jobs.
There will be a tipping point where you almost can't compete with the robots, I think, from an efficiency standpoint. And in order to do a job to any level of efficiency of any scale or size, you will need the robots to be able to achieve that.
Do you understand why that might be a little unsettling to a mason?
Absolutely. The bottom line is that young people don't want to go into masonry. They don't want to go into these hard, difficult, dangerous tasks that people, 50 years ago would absolutely love to go into.
And do you think robots can fill that gap?
In some cases, they may completely fill it, but I think there'll be other opportunities for different style careers in construction as time goes on. It's just the job looks a little bit different going down the road because it's interacting with a robot.
My name is Lewis Miller. I am a floral and event designer here in Manhattan. Flowers are the ultimate luxury because they're so expensive and they're perishable. So it's really only the very wealthy that get to experience them firsthand as opposed to just seeing them in a magazine or seeing them on somebody's Instagram feed.
We came up with these flower flashes, basically, which are street art installations made of flowers.
It's sort of evolved over the last year. The first one we did was the Imagine medallion in Central Park. We had this mass of flowers that still were perfectly fine and decided now's the time to do it. And the next morning, we got in the truck and did it. Okay, perfect. Okay, here we go.
We're headed up to Harlem for our earliest flower flash that we've done in a while. So these are all leftover from this big fancy event we did last week. I'm gonna give myself about 15 minutes for the bus stop. Bursting at the seams.
It's been a lot of fun because there's also this element of danger, quickness, like it happens very fast, and spontaneity about it that to me is very exhilarating.
Move the whole thing to the left a little bit. Oh, this looks great. Okay, stop.
In these flower flashes, they just really just happen, and you're in and out, and then whatever happens to it after that is still part of the art here. Whew. But there needs to be that element of tension, and that's when I'm like, off we go.
All right. Yeah. Guys, that's a flash.
Very nice. I love it.
It's beautiful. That one made us come across the street. We were like, who put these plants like that?
That juxtaposition of something that's so beautiful and romantic and fresh and alive versus the grit and the grime and the graffiti and the street art and the noise that is the city. I love that.
That's Vice News Tonight for Wednesday, July 19th.